It was a magical summer. Noah was a country boy. Allie was from the city. They met the night of the carnival. They had nothing in common, but after seeing Allie that night, something inside Noah snapped.
Will you go out with me?
No!
No? Ah! Damn, my hand's slipping.
Okay, fine. I'll go out with you.
No, don't do me any favors.
No, I want to.
Say it again.
I want to go out with you!
All right, we'll go out.
Happy Valentine's Day, and welcome to Damian and Devlin's review of The Notebook. We apologize already for our puffy eyes, but as I just said, we watched The Notebook. It's a movie from 2004 directed by Nick Cassavetes that starred Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams, James Garner, Gina Rowlands, and Joan Allen. It was a film that was mixed critically, but fans went out to see it in droves, and it wound up becoming a really big cult film. And it's probably, if you asked people, it would probably be ranked among one of the greatest romance movies of all time. Now, Damian picked this movie, and I'm glad he did, because we had both seen it prior, but this was the first time we shared it together. And yeah, it was just as moving as the first time I saw it, and Damian can speak for himself, but I can tell he was pretty moved as well.
I was. I had to leave the room several times because, I just didn't really like the film.
Yeah, that's it. But you picked the movie.
No, it is actually the complete opposite. I really, really enjoyed The Notebook. It actually means a whole lot to me, and I will go into why it means a lot to me, but it has a significant impact in my life. And it was one of those movies where going into it, I saw it for the very first time, very young. I do believe it was 2007, 2008, maybe even 2009. I think it's 2008, though, is when I first saw it. And I saw it when I was still in high school. I was in a writer's craft class, and I actually groaned out loud with my best friend who was sitting right here next to me in the class.
Not me.
It wasn't
another
him.
guy.
It wasn't him. But we both audibly groaned out loud when we heard that this is the project that we were going to be focusing on. Because, oh, great. Here comes a sappy romance movie. Two teenage boys. That's the last thing they want to watch. And let's just say that the two of us, when we left that class, we were changed men.
This is based on the Nicholas Sparks novel that was actually a pretty big novel. It came out in 1996, and it became a phenomenon. And I think when the movie became big, I remember it was an explosion. Everybody wanted to do Nicholas Sparks movies, and all his novels were made into movies within years because of the success of The Notebook. And it is one of the few romance movies that men really get. And I'm not saying it's bad. This is a movie that men and women can watch and enjoy together, because sometimes, it doesn't happen. But I've talked to many men who have been notebooked. In fact, that term came about because of a TV show. I can't remember which one. I don't know if it was Friends or not, but there was a running gag going on. Have you been notebooked yet? Some girl hey, I got a movie for you. And they put this on, and by the end of it, they're just a blubbering mass.
Makes me feel like I'm going to get indoctrinated. Have you been notebooked lately?
So since you picked this movie, and it's Valentine's Day week, tell us what your positives are about it, what you loved about it.
You know what? I've seen a lot of romance movies throughout the years, and not all of them get it right. Sometimes it honestly feels forced. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a romance movie. It could just be a romance subplot that's thrown into a movie between two of the leads, and it doesn't always strike home. And I think that none of that applies to The Notebook. The Notebook hits the romance so wonderfully, so beautifully, and it's so genuine at so many points of the movie. I can easily name several of my favorite moments, and they just feel so natural. It makes me feel like I'm some guy that literally wandered into these people's lives, and I just happened to be there without them noticing me. As creepy as that sounds, but that's how natural it feels, and that obviously is the biggest positive for me, is the fact that the romance feels natural, it feels right, and there's just so much passion behind it. I can truly tell that Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, that they truly were into each other. And I asked him during the movie, because we both know that they were dating at some point in real life as well, and I asked him, was it during the filming or was it after this movie? Because just the way that they were acting together, we could tell that they were super into each other on screen and off. So that is definitely a big one for me. Of course, going back to it, it is set in the 40s, starts off in 1940, and then it progresses through the years up until the point of after World War II. And again, I love the 40s. I love the aesthetic, I love the cars, the music, the style, the clothing. I think it was beautiful, absolutely wonderful. And you know what? The acting by all the other characters as well. You got the father in there, you got the mother, you got the older versions of characters that are in there. So we know that there's patients and whatnot. They're older. Everybody who has a role to play in this movie is absolutely excellent, and it makes me honestly feel like it's, like I said, it's more like I'm peering into somebody's life rather than watching a movie.
Is that it?
So far, yeah, that's basically the major points that I wanted to hit on, but absolutely.
Well, I won't repeat too much what you said, but I will give a heads up. The director, Nick Cassavetes, he's got some beautiful shots in this. It just looks beautiful. The setting, the era, the clothes all look great. Everything looks wonderful. He manages to do something. He makes the 1940s seem modern. Even though he doesn't go out of the way. There's shots of Ryan Gosling wearing 1940s clothes, but he still looks like he could still wear that now and get away with it. Same with Rachel McAdams. So some of the visuals they did great preparation. There's lots of shots too when they're on the river and rowing that are absolutely gorgeous. The acting is superb. Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams were wonderful choices. When I read about this, I was surprised to hear so many say that they actually wouldn't have done this movie if they couldn't find the right girl, because they believe the movie is the girl's journey. I actually believe this is Ryan Gosling's journey. It's both of their journey, obviously, but I think the story actually reads more to him, and I think that's why I think women and men like it, because he doesn't come off as a sappy character. He comes off as just a real man. They like real people. I do have to say one thing. There's two love stories that we see in this that are kind of one. Don't want to give away too many spoilers, but we see Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. The older characters, James Garner and Gina Rowlands, they don't get all the, the syrupy love fun stuff. But their love is still strong, and it's powerful, and it's important to mention, because I don't think The Notebook would have worked without this other sub-story going through it. I actually don't think it would have worked without the narration that we get from the James Garner and Gina Rowlands character.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that, because some of the biggest moments that really, really hits you right in the gut aren't necessarily with Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. It's the parts with the older actors that are definitely more heart-wrenching than anything else, and the love that they have, as opposed to Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams, which is beautiful in itself.
Yeah.
But the love that
all comes together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's their love that really, really hits you right in the feels.
Yeah. We're going to probably be hitting some love romance movies that I'm not a big fan of, and this movie does something that I absolutely love. There are love triangles in this movie, but the third person, there's kind of two love triangles in the movie, but the third person in both cases, when a triangle develops, is not made to be an awful person. They literally are people you could see that they would fall in love with, as well as falling in love with other things. This to me is so important. I cannot stand a love triangle that suddenly has to make a character evil because they realize the love story isn't strong enough. I won't mention names. This movie does not do that. There are two other people that are involved, and you can feel the love between them as well, and I give them credit for not going down the path of turning those people evil. Even the mother, who does have kind of an evil subplot, comes off as human, and you kind of understand what she did, even though you're not happy. And again, I won't tell you what it was if you haven't seen it, but please, great movie to watch this week, anytime this week. My final thing, I had one other thing. You think I can remember it? No. So I'm going to go and let Damian talk about his negatives and see if I can think about it.
I'm glad they actually brought the mother up. You know what? For as evil as she comes off, I don't feel like she's necessarily the villain of the movie. I don't even feel like there is a villain, really, in the movie.
No. But if you had to pick one, I'm just saying they do. But they do it like a real life thing.
You're right.
Right.
As much as I don't think she's a villain, like you said, you can understand why she's doing the things that she's doing.
Right.
She's kind of living vicariously through her daughter. And that's as much as I'm going to say about it. I wish I could go into a little bit more detail about what's going on, because that's one of my negatives with regards to this movie. There's a scene between the mother and Rachel McAdams, the daughter, and it's explained why the mom is doing what she's doing. And to me, I've always had trouble with this scene because I'm not sure whether or not the mom's just making it up on the fly. And that's the reason I say that is because there's a certain sentence that she says during that scene, and it makes me wonder whether or not the mom's just trying to do that to maybe sway her daughter's opinion, or just kind of trying to relate to her in some way.
I thought it was a little eerie that she still knew where the guy worked.
Yeah. So
if you know what we're talking about, you know what we're talking about. If not, go see it.
She goes there and stares at him every so often.
Yeah, I know. That was a little disturbing.
But there's a sentence in it. She says, like, I don't even know who that man is. And that makes me think that maybe she's made this whole story up, or maybe she's meaning it metaphorically, as if they've changed over the years. I don't know. But that's one of the negatives, because it just, the way that it comes off, it confused me as a kid, and it still confuses me as an adult. So I don't know really what's going on there in the mom's mind. Another negative I will have to say is the father, so Rachel McAdams' father. I feel like he's a little bit cartoony.
Yes, absolutely.
He's a little cartoony.
I don't have to say that negative now, because I have other ones. But
as much as I enjoyed his acting and portrayal, he's a cartoon character. He's your stereotypical Southern gentleman, and he's got class and refinement, and he's got the mustache to prove it.
Yeah, but the mustache actually looks really out of place.
It looks like they pasted it on.
Looney Tunes cartoons.
It looks like they pasted it on.
You varmint! You know.
Yeah, it's Yosemite Sam with class. It's Yosemite Sam struck gold.
He kind of sticks out in every scene because he just doesn't seem... Like I was saying about how they filmed it to feel like it was modern, even though it was 1940s. He actually felt like he was in the 1940s.
Another negative I'll say is the beginning when Ryan Gosling's character Noah is first introduced to Rachel McAdams' character Allie. I feel like he comes off a little strong. I'm not gonna lie.
It would be considered bullying now.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the beginning of the movie, but he basically forces her into saying yes, I'll go out with you. I won't go into details how he does it, but essentially he gives her no choice. Literally no choice. Otherwise something bad's literally going to happen. And I felt like it was a little forced. Sure, it turned into a wonderful romance, a blossoming, beautiful romance, but he comes off as a little weird at the beginning and creepy. I'm not going to lie. So
I found it charming as well, though.
How?
I'm old school. I found it charming, but I saw that how nowadays if somebody did that, it would be probably considered bullying.
So how did you find it charming? I'm just curious.
His ego, that he knew this is something he had to have, and he wanted that date. And so I found it charming because he fought. We don't fight for things anymore. Like, we don't rebel about things anymore. And to see him put his life on the line just to get this date with the girl. Yes, you're right. It was totally a little crazy and mixed up, but I think people like that. See, I think people read romance novels and watch romance movies because this is what they think they want, but in real life you're not going to get that.
I just feel like if anybody were to do that in this day and age, I'm going to sound a little shallow here, but that wasn't as beautiful as Ryan Gosling, would probably get a restraining order put on them. Not going to lie about that. Not speaking from personal experience or anything. But
interesting little tidbit on that is when you mentioned Ryan Gosling, Nick Cassavetes cast him because he wanted an actor who was not famous yet and not that attractive.
You thought that Ryan Gosling
He
was
thought he was good looking, but he thought he was just average looking. That's why when James Marsden's introduced with the strong jaw, the blue eyes.
I must be a supermodel in Nick Cassavetes'
Nick
eyes.
Cassavetes wanted non-handsome.
Oh my gosh.
So,
A
sorry.
funny story, actually. I met Ryan Gosling very shortly after this movie became big, and I had no idea who he was at the time. I worked for Toys R Us, and there was this man standing in front of the door of Toys R Us, and I was having an awful day. So without even looking at the guy, really, I said, "Can you get the F out of my way?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, sorry about that." I go into the back room, and suddenly all the girls in Toys R Us go rushing into the break room. I'm like, oh my God, did you see him? Did you see him? And I got frustrated and annoyed with everything that was going on, so I said, "See who?" And they're like, "Ryan Gosling, he was here in our store." So I asked to see like what Ryan Gosling looked like, and it just so happened to be the guy that I told to get the F out of my way. So I met Ryan Gosling, and I put him in his place.
Yeah, his family's in Burlington, isn't it, or something?
Yeah,
and
Burlington,
he visits
Ontario.
a lot, but I didn't get to see him. But...
Well, I'm sure your reaction to him would have been much different than mine.
I knew him from Breaker High, a teen drama, comedy drama he did where he played a real goofy thing. So yes, I'm old. So are you done your negatives?
Yeah, I would have to say I don't have a lot of negatives with this movie, but it's definitely the father, and then that one scene in particular with the mother. It drives me nuts. Actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, another negative that I have is briefly World War II is shown.
Oh,
Briefly, and I think that honestly it is the cheesiest thing that I've ever seen.
Thank you for taking two of my negatives, because now I don't have to do them. Oh my God!
Here's my death scene.
That's not Ryan Gosling. That's not giving away anything. Yeah, no, I agree with you. That was horrible.
It's so bad.
I've seen I've seen too many war films with this guy now that I know that was
bad.
like, you know.
Anyways, now I'm done.
Okay, I do have some negatives on the film, and I think they're plausible. We'll go with number one, kind of fitting with what you said about him being a little crazy and daring and be bullying. The big twist where they break up, I felt was not, and it's not really a twist. It's just for one brief moment, he gives up his character and decides that he thinks he wants to break up with her because he can't take the pressure that the parents don't want them to be together. That goes against everything that we saw of that guy. Now, I know they tried to play it up like he was doing the right thing, and he knew that that was best, that she goes to school and forgets about him and stuff. But it goes against his character, because she even gives him the option, come to New York with me. That character would have came to New York with her.
Yeah, he would have found a way.
But it went against everything in his character, and I didn't like that, because he basically stayed true to follow your dreams, follow everything, and he was going to let distance be the thing to end it for them. I don't think a rebel like that, and I don't believe a 17-year-old would be thinking about, no, that would be for your best interest. They'd be thinking of what damn well would be best for them.
He would have been super selfish. I'll agree with you on that. He would have been super selfish. And at one point, his character even says, New York? Yeah, absolutely. And like he's trying to convince himself about it, and then suddenly they just start arguing.
What would I do in New York? You know, this guy could do anything in New York.
It shows. He's a handyman. He's a handyman. He works on the factory, the lumber mill. Yeah. I'm sure New York has plenty of those opportunities. So.
Well, he found job in Atlanta.
Yeah.
We're giving away too much, but not really. You can't figure it out. Number two, and this is a big one for me, I was shocked seeing this again, how much Rachel McAdams hits and pushes him.
Yes.
And I am not a fan. Even when I see a couple playfully hit one another, I don't like that. No. Because if Ryan Gosling hit her once in this movie, it would have been all out. And she like pushes him, punches him, slaps him, and I don't like the double standard of that. And I kind of wish they'd tone that down. I would have maybe given her a slap, but even when they show the slap, they never showed the first slap. They don't justify. You don't hear. It's a montage of them fighting all the time.
Because that's what they do.
Right. And they play up the fact they fight all the time. But never do you see Ryan Gosling go physical. She literally
Never.
pushes him against trucks and stuff. I can forgive it, but I can't overlook it. So I have to call that a negative.
Just so everybody's aware, not only is she super physical with him, and yeah, sure, it's her character. It's her character,
Yeah.
for sure. It's her character. But not only is she super physical with him, but he never once even attempts to raise his hand in defense
No.
against her. He
No.
lets her hit him.
In fact, there's one scene where she slaps him so much, he starts slapping
He hits
himself
himself.
to say, I'll do it for you. I agree with what you're doing. I don't personally agree. I still think that was something. And finally, I have to bring this up because it's the biggest loophole in this movie. And if they didn't have the James Garner, Gina Rowland stuff, and they took all those scenes out and just played this, I would not have been able to overlook this part. Minor spoiler here. When they break up, he writes her a letter every day for 365 days. It's constantly brought up. She even says, how come you didn't write me? I won't tell you what happens because you've got to find that out for yourself. Never do we hear that she ever wrote to him and she knew where his father lived. And I felt a couple of times in this movie, she constantly moved on with her life and kept blaming him for stuff where she could have easily been as obsessed as he was with her. He had trouble moving on for his life, and I think this is the reason why men identify with this movie, because sometimes men get accused of not being romantic when they are. And I felt in this movie, Ryan Gosling does a lot of the work, but I couldn't believe, like, she blames her mother, she blames him. Not once did we ever hear him getting a letter from her. And I cannot escape that loophole, though I'm not saying it kills the romance for me. It's just, that's a big loophole for
You know,
me.
it's even, now that you mention that, I never thought about that. Now that you mention it, she loves this guy so much, she cares for him, he's the one for her. World War II breaks out. Every single man in America of serving age essentially goes off to fight in the war, whether it's against the Japanese or the Germans. She never even says, are you okay? Are you still here? So that just popped into my mind while you were explaining that. Absolutely.
But
so
that is my biggest loophole in this movie. It
and
does
I never
not.
thought about it.
It doesn't kill the movie, but whenever a line is mentioned about when she blames him for not keeping the romance alive, it always comes into my head like, you did nothing. He did everything. He did a lot more than writing letters in this. You'll see when you see the movie, which you should. All right. Well, did you want to share your personal thing beforehand?
The reason I brought up earlier is the fact that this movie hits home with me more personally than I'm going to go into. But basically, I just want everybody to be aware that this movie, the reason it's so special to me and the reason that I love it, recently we actually had something together where we revealed our top 50 movies to one another. And in my top 50 was The Notebook. And like I said, I watched this for the very first time as a teenager in writer's craft class in high school. And going into it, I never thought I would enjoy this movie. Coming out of it, you know what? I loved this movie. It broke my soul in ways that I can't even explain. But I fell in love with this movie, and it will always be in my top 50. And the reason being is because, and no word of a lie on this, I wish I was joking, but every single step of Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams' romance I have lived with a certain individual. It was my first love. We were madly in love with each other. We broke up due to distance. And you know what? I was willing to do everything, and we just never made it work. I tried to move on and I couldn't, and she ended up moving on. From there, years down the line, again, same pacing. We got back together, reinitiated this fiery romance. And because I was going through that exactly at the same time that this movie came into my life, it gutted me. Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie, it gutted me. But it gutted me in a good way, because at that point it helped me realize, you know what, I am not the only one that feels this way. and there are people out there that are alone. It's Valentine's Day. It can be considered one of the happiest, most romantic days of the year, but at the same time, there are people out there that are suffering and they're alone. And you guys just have to realize that as sad as you might be right now, as alone as you might be feeling, you aren't alone. And eventually, I promise you, I'm not saying it's going to wind up as beautiful as this story ended up, because my story did not continue with that person. It did not go down that beautiful path, but it will get better, and you do not have to feel alone about it. That's all I wanted to share with everybody.
Very nice. Very nice.
As for what I would give this movie, because I know that's what your next question is going to be,
Absolutely.
I have to honestly rate this movie a 4. It's in my top 50, and it's a 4 for me.
I am going to agree with you. Even though I have problems with it, it is a gorgeous movie, and by the end of it, I forget all the problems. And I will give it a 4 as well. It is that good. It is a feel-good film. Felt just as good watching it as I did the first time I watched it, and I could watch it again. It is just a really good and probably one of the best romance films out there.
Absolutely. And happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
If you want to go and have a very happy Valentine's Day and cry tears of happiness and joy, definitely watch this movie, because I guarantee you, as long as you have a beating heart in your chest, you will definitely lose your mind with tears at some point during this movie. I guarantee you. Also, I have to just say, before we end this, that one of my biggest fears in life shows up in this movie with regards to dementia.
Oh, don't go there.
I
have that fear too.
I am terrified.
No, don't.
Absolutely terrified.
Let's
that
end this
one
on a
day-
happy note, because I fear that too.
Yeah. But
And
you
I'm
know what?
older than you.
But you know what?
So I'm closer to
Let's
it than
end it
you.
on a good note.
Yes.
Just like them, I would never give up on you if that happened.
I wouldn't give up on you either.
We're a team through and through, right to the end.
Yeah, we don't do this just for the sake of doing it. We do this because we love movies and we love one another.
Absolutely. Take us away, Captain.
Thanks for watching. I hope you have a great Valentine's Day, whether you're alone or you have people. Hey, spend it with a friend. That's just a great love affair too.
Spend it with us.
Anyhow, don't forget to keep watching. We got lots of brand new stuff coming up in the new season.
As always, comment, let us know how you think we're doing. Like this video, because we're definitely going to continue on. And then also subscribe so you never miss a beat. Thanks so much for joining us, guys, and we will see you next time.
The Notebook.